catching something from surfing after the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oof. And there's biotic resistant things you can get, which is not fun either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So nobody go in the ocean. Not today.
Okay.
Not.
Yet.
If anybody was thinking about it, I mean, it's very cold as well, but.
Yeah. I'm thinking about getting a full suit. I have a spring suit, but I am missing the boogie boarding so much that I don't think I'll be surfing again, but I will certainly do that.
Mm-hmm. I think it's worth it to get the thicker one. Bridger, Malika has the same wetsuit that I think. I've seen her out there in the Matus. That's a really good one. And they're a local company as well. They're a local San Diego company too.
What's the name of it again?
It's Matus. I'll put it in the chat.
Oh, that'd be lovely.
It's a great wetsuit. And so they're out of La Jolla and Del Mar. It was two guys, a guy from Del Mar, he was researching what's the best neoprene rubber for a wetsuit. And I guess it's like a Japanese rubber. And he just went to Japan, kind of cold called a factory and went there and sell me this, right? It's a pretty cool entrepreneurial story. And the wetsuits are awesome.
Wow. Very nice to know.
You can get them at Mitch's.
Yeah, Mitch's. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Matus himself, there's an actual person, Matus. And is he still at Mitch's? Is he still there? Yeah. Yeah, I highly recommend. They're great.
Huh.
I'm gonna go shift my children into the other room. So they're playing a very loud game right now of some truck bash kind of situation.
Like they're having fun.
I'm gonna move them into their bed quick.
So I should explain while we're all sat here quietly that you can unmute yourselves and talk to folks, but we start normally at 3:30 with a little bit of social time, just so people can get on and chit chat, and then Maren will kick us off here with the program proper at 4 o'clock. So I'll just share on the screen the agenda. But sometimes when I do that, if you're new to Zoom, it'll kind of take over all of your screen and you won't be able to see people anymore. You'll just see the agenda. And you can actually control that yourself at your end, but it's not always obvious how to do it. On a PC, you can hit the escape key, will get you out of the full screen mode, and then you'll see both the agenda and the people. And then you can kind of drag the two screens to kind of make them the size you want. And if you can't figure that out, don't worry, because I'll turn off the sharing a little bit later. So I think this is the agenda that I'm sharing. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, we see it.
Yeah, that's great. And as I say, you can play around with the Zoom thing if you can't. To resize, normally you can drag the people bigger, or the shared object, you can drag it smaller. And if you're on a tablet or a phone, you can swap between the pictures of the people and the pictures of the screen by tapping on the tablet, tapping on one or the other. Or we can just memorize it now and then we don't have to look at it later.
Let's just all do that.
Yeah.
It is short.
Take a picture with your phone.
Yeah, so I'll stop sharing now. And then on the website as well, if you go to that, it has a kind of details of the speaker, Lucero, and then later of the two speakers who are speaking on the ADEMs, Gretchen and Loxie.
And then we're going to have to add something to that as well. Barbara Bree after Gretchen and Loxie.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, as a special guest. Yeah. And if, yeah, during the meeting when we start here, if you have questions and can't figure stuff out, you can chat. And if you ask any of the people who show in the chat as being a co-host, or the participants tab, you'll see them as well. The co-hosts are listed at the top. And if you click on their name and hit chat, you can send them a message and they can probably help.
Okay.
Or they'll try and help anyway. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the last thing I'll say just before Maren starts in a minute here is just to say it's also been streamed live to YouTube. So everybody has to be nice and polite to each other. No, I'm just, I mean, you know, it's always a good idea, but bear in mind it will be captured for posterity.
Look at Stuart's beard.
Mhm.
Hi, Nancy.
COVID beard.
Yeah, like covered hair.
Yeah.
Hi,
did it.
Jerry. Hi, Kay. Oh my goodness. Hi, Catherine.
Hello.
Hi, Doug.
Hi.
Stuart, let's see your beard again. Get closer. Wow. I'm impressed. Nancy, you look great. Can't
Hi,
hear you.
Catherine. Hi, Catherine.
Okay, what, Nancy?
Did you get new glasses or?
Oh, no, to see up close, I need glasses, reading glasses.
Okay, you look good.
Thank you.
Frame of them. Beautiful.
And
It's good to see everybody.
yes, I agree. Too bad it isn't in real person so we could hug.
No.
Our neighbor went, yeah, next door. He's on Gary.
I see what Dad's here.
Yeah,
Hi,
I am
Dad.
here. Hi, Susan. How are you doing?
And Dave Engel's here in Sonora.
Hi, my dad. It's Judith.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Anne Marie.
Free. Hi.
There's 37 participants, but there's not their faces yet. A lot of them.
Oh, Is your Zoom frozen, Nancy?
What's that?
Are we looking like gray squares to you on your?
There's black. Well, no, there's just about your person with a background where we're sitting. But it says here that there are 37 participants, but we've only got 5 people.
Go to gallery view.
Pardon?
And then you have to go to the second screen. If you're in gallery view.
Well, I'm okay. In fact, Stuart put my face, so Nancy and Stuart's name is there. He doesn't want to be him. Or,
There's therapy for that.
And who are you?
Me?
Yes.
I'm Judith Coker. Nice to meet you.
Coker. There you
Thank you,
go.
Judith, for emailing WSWA for emailing with Western Service Workers. I talked to them about your email to me too.
Hi, everybody. This is Kay, and I would like to introduce Nancy Kane, who's in the lower right corner. She's still unmuted, but she's a guest today. So I've invited her.
Hey, hi, Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Nancy.
All right, should we start? I think everybody's rolling in that will, and everybody else just can. So I'm going to call us to order. It is 4:04. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Did everybody memorize the agenda in social time? No? Okay, look that up, and then we can have a motion to approve it because we do have an addition.
I'll move to approve it with the addition.
With the addition of Barbara Briggs, our special guest, speaking after the ADEMs discussion.
Yeah, that's
Can
right.
we have a second to approve the agenda?
I second it.
And is that Widad?
Widad, yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Widad. Sorry, I only have the little line of faces on my screen. I can't see everybody at the same time right now. All right, so second, all those, if there's anybody that does not agree with that, all those in favor, I'm just saying it's pretty much everybody. And all those opposed, you can put your little hand up if you're opposed to that. Okay, so agenda passes unanimous consent. Okay, so let's, do we have any candidates or representatives of candidates who would like to speak? I see Doug Case's clapping hands, so you may go first, Doug Case.
Yeah, I meant to raise my hand instead of clap my hand, but thank you. I'm Doug Case. I am the political affairs director for Senate President Pro Tem Tony Atkins. And the legislature went back into session on January the 11th, and their primary goal right now is the state budget. The governor released his proposal, which includes changes to the current fiscal year, as well as the proposal for the next fiscal year. It includes $600 in stimulus checks to low-income residents, $2.6 billion in rental assistance to tenants and mom and pop landlords, including a eviction moratorium extension. How long that extension will be is to be determined. Grants and tax credits for small businesses affected by COVID, $2 billion for schools to safely reopen, and some one-time funds for emergency preparedness and wildlife prevention. In addition, some other issues that the legislature will be dealing with. There will be housing once again, and there has been a series of housing production bills that have been introduced, and I'll put a summary of that in the chat. And then finally, some of the bills that didn't make it across the finish line last time will be reintroduced, including Senator Bradford's bill on police certification that would preclude police officers who have been found responsible for misconduct in one jurisdiction to keep them from being rehired in a different municipality. And so I look forward to keeping you abreast as the session progresses, and thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Okay, do we have any other candidates or people speaking on behalf of the candidate? I see Gretchen, you can go ahead and go.
Thank you. So we're going to talk later about the ADEMs, but I will put in a personal plug for myself because I am running for re-election to the ADEMs 8078. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Gretchen Newsom, former town council president of Ocean Beach. I'm currently the political director for IBEW Local 569, the electricians union, one of the more progressive unions in the nation. And I'm also running on the Progressive Unity slate. The names of my other slate members include Josie Caballero, Latanya Klein, Janessa Goldbeck, Carol Kim, Katie Meyer, Maya Rosas, Rick Bates, Jordan Bean, Jess Durfee, Ramon Espinal, Marcelo Ramirez, Matthew Vasilakis, and Matthew Yagagan. Together, these slate members, we've joined together as a diverse representation from labor, the environmental community, and also the LGBTQ plus community. We have a progressive unity slate and platform that can be seen on our Facebook page, which I can share with you on the chat. And we're really excited to go back to, for some of us, back to the convention and represent your progressive views. Thank you.
Thanks, Gretchen. Any other candidates, representatives of candidates?
May I speak?
Yes. I'm assuming you're representing or are one. Yeah, go ahead, of course.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Widad Shlota. I am running to have a leadership role at the state level as a delegate for Assembly District 78. I would like to make a change in the Democratic Party, and I will be honored if you vote for me. I'm a progressive Democrat woman dedicated to achieving economic, social, racial justice for all people in our country. I am on the ACLU board, member of the Democratic Women's Club of San Diego County, and vice president of the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee. And I have volunteered throughout my whole life in pursuing the goal of social justice. So if you would like to vote for me, I really would appreciate it. I am running in the grassroots community slate along with Kevin Lawrence, Mika, Seska, Loxie, Melissa, Oren Robinson. So I would appreciate your vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Widad. Any other candidates? Virtual hand raised or actual hand?
I tried to raise my hand, but it's not taken.
Okay, you may just go.
Okay, Gary Gartner. Happy New Year, everyone. I just want to ask Gretchen and Loxie and others who are running. It seems like the slates are lining up to either support Rusty Hicks for the most part or Elaine Easton. And I was just curious how that is working, and if you could talk to that, Loxie, too.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, sorry, I was trying to raise my hand and it wouldn't let me. I was trying to follow the rules, but I don't know what was wrong. So I was having the same problem you were. Yeah, I'd love to speak to that. I do think, yeah, the way the 78 slates have kind of worked out is our slate was put together by Kevin Lawrence and by the Progressive Delegate Network, looking for people, and we all had to sign a commitment to on a platform that we all came forward and had to commit to. It wasn't necessarily that we're committing to vote for Rusty or Delane, but that really that we're committed to certain values. And although the other side is labor, it does have, you know, with building trades, and there definitely is an issue there between building trades and environmental that we've seen in the past. So essentially our slate, which is myself, Widad, Micah Perlin, Sarah Davis had a huge part in helping construct it, as well as Cody Pedersen, as well as Kevin Lawrence and a bunch of different community activists, and Jean-Louis Tran as well. So yeah, our slate is pro Easton, and we really do want to have a change at the top level. We do think that our slate is also a lot younger in terms of people that are newer to the party, it's actually more an activist platform and organizers. So we have people from Sunrise Movement, we have people from, and John Wee is on CPI. So there's a lot of different kind of cross community representation and not necessarily establishment, people that have had a track record so far in the Dem party, but really kind of where the Dem party we think is going in terms of. So that was the point there. But yes, I am running for 78, and my name is the first name on the top. I somehow got lucky with that. So Loxie Gant is at the top of your ballot for 78. Thanks.
Madam President, did you want me to address this now at this point?
Yeah, I think the question was to both of you, so sure.
Thank you. So Gary, how the Progressive Unity slate has developed, it is without certainty as to whom each candidate will be supporting. I would share with you that for the most part, those that are seeking re-election did not vote for Rusty Hicks this last time around. I will speak for myself. I voted for 2 times ago, Kimberly, and then this last time I voted for Duraka. So I can say though that looking at our slate, we are committed to hearing out all the candidates. None of us have committed to either candidate at this point, and you never know, there might be somebody else that comes into the mix on things. We've seen that happen before too. So we have a shared platform of progressive values, and we are willing to work together to listen to everybody and move forward. So I, again, myself have not committed to Rusty at this point, or to Delane. And as for the apparent fight between the environmental community and building trades, I represent both of those communities. So maybe perhaps that could be a topic for a future meeting so that we can lay things out.
Yeah, would you like to say anything since you're a candidate for this as well? I just wanted to give all candidates a chance to respond to the question. Do we have any other candidates that would like to speak?
The one extra thing I didn't get a chance to say, if I can say as well, is yeah, I do think getting building trades and Enviro on the same page. And yes, Gretchen, you're one of the few that's on both sides of that fence. But we do see conflicting proposals there. But for me, one of the other things too is that for our slate was put together by activists, and as we know, the other slate was put together by Chris Ward and his contingency. And so we find it very helpful to have voices that aren't necessary, that are contrarian to the person sitting in that seat, since he gets to appoint the delegates, his own set of delegates as well. Having some of us in there that are really willing to ask the hard questions and do some of the work. So that was the other difference there.
We can dive into this, and we're going to talk about this at more length a little bit later in the meeting. So kind of just to move along in the program too. So are there any other candidates that wanted their 2 minutes? 2 minutes? Okay. So moving along, I'd then like to start with our program and introduce our speaker, Lucero Sanchez. Lucero, welcome.
Hello,
so
everyone.
I'm giving it over to her, and she's going to give a little overview on her background, working with Coastkeeper, fill us in on, it's a really timely discussion actually about stormwater and in San Diego. All right, Lucero, take it away.
Thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me to do this presentation. I see a lot of familiar faces and friendly faces, so if you've heard this conversation before, this is just a reminder. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can start to get into it. Awesome. So I just want to kind of talk about Water 101, some of the issues that our region is facing, as well as some of the solutions that we can take. Like Maren did bring up, it is a very timely discussion. We're seeing some rain this weekend, so you're kind of going to see some of the talking points that I'm bringing up today out and about, as well as the Environment Committee is having a meeting where they're going to be addressing some stormwater issues. So perfect timing on this. I will go ahead and just say I am with San Diego Coastkeeper. I am their community policy coordinator. I joined last year. San Diego Coastkeeper is a grassroots nonprofit, meaning 501c3, that works on protecting, restoring the region's waters. And we do that in a lot of different ways. We have educators go into elementary schools. We have outreach and engagement, which is a lot of what I do. Our science portion is water quality testing, citizen science, and also just making sure that we're advocating for all of these things, because as we know, funding and policy is really important when we're talking about the environment and a lot of those issues. So let's just go into a little bit of a background. San Diego Coastkeeper works in watersheds. So Coastkeeper is a little bit of a misnomer in the sense that we're not just working on the coast, we're working in the canyons, inland, anywhere in San Diego County. There are other water keepers, coast keepers in different regions, but we are our own 501c3 working in San Diego County. So in this page here, we just kind of show what a watershed is. All that means is an area of land that drains into the same body of water when any water goes into that area. So in San Diego County, we actually have 11 of these major watersheds, and they all drain into the Pacific Ocean. So no matter where you are in San Diego County, anything that you are littering or like seeing around is going to end up in the Pacific Ocean. Why that's an issue is just urbanization in general has caused a lot of issues that we wouldn't be seeing if, you know, we were living in completely rural areas. When it rains, a lot of the water, rather than soaking into the dirt, into the area and getting filtered through, there's a lot of runoff. You hear that term runoff, it just is stormwater. It picks up a lot of trash, a lot of debris, and because instead of having it go into the ground, you see higher flow rates, meaning there's going to be erosion in our area. And that's kind of what you see at the bottom right there. Why that's an issue is because we have a lot of pollution. Choyas Creek here, which is in San Diego Bay, you can kind of see here, this picture was taken after one of the first rains a few years back, and you see all of the pollution there, as well as these pictures on the right. You see this actually I took last year while we were on a watershed tour with Councilmember Moreno, and we got to see all of that pollution there. Usually this floods, so you can imagine just in this picture, all of this is in the Pacific Ocean right now. You see some chemical spills here from industrial pollution, from irrigation runoff. There's a lot of pollutants that you can't see, a lot of metals and a lot of other issues that are going to impact public health, fishing, different areas like that. And timely for this weekend is that it rained this weekend, which, as most of us know, you can't go into the water in our beaches 72 hours after a rainfall. And that's due to the runoff, due to issues with our stormwater system, which I will get into a little bit more. But this picture on the bottom right is actually from November, which was our first rain. We've had a pretty dry year. But even with that, there's every single beach in San Diego County was not safe to swim in. And even in dry areas, dry times, you think that this would just be a rainy season issue. Some of these beaches are never safe. You know, Imperial Beach is a big one like that. So just to keep in mind, I know this is kind of a bummer kind of conversation at first, but I do want to talk about it and talk about why it's an important thing and why we need solutions. So it will turn more positive, I promise. One of the other issues is flooding. We see it in Mission Valley a lot. That's something that's very close to home. There's some pictures of like aging infrastructure and water main breaks. These are issues that are across all of San Diego County. No city is really spared from this, but these are just some good pictures here of that. So this is a little bit of the reason why public health risks in the area. Again, sewage contaminated water may expose illnesses. The reason that this is an issue is because we have aging infrastructure. On the right, you see kind of the system that we have, and I wanted to touch on this. We have what's called an MS4, a municipal separate storm sewer system. It's a mouthful, but what it really means is that we have two systems, one for wastewater where anything that's coming from your home, from industrial locations, is going through a sanitary sewer. You see that in that yellowish pipe here, and that gets treated, and the treated wastewater gets put back into our ocean, our rivers, our basins. The other system is stormwater. It's the method that we use so that we're not having flooding all of the time. You see it everywhere, those stormwater drains. That doesn't have any kind of filtering that happens. It's just so that we're not flooding when there's big rains. So this picture really shows that the problem is that these aging infrastructures usually run right next to each other, as you can see in the bottom left picture, the blue being stormwater, yellow being wastewater. These aging pipes are mixing in with each other, meaning that our wastewater from our homes is going into our stormwater pipe, which is not being treated, meaning we have human fecal matter in our oceans. And that is something that is definitely a concern for our own health, as well as the health of all of the critters in the ocean. So that's something that definitely needs to be addressed, and it causes those health risks that are a huge issue. Last issue that we face that I want to talk about is that we are transporting a lot of our water into San Diego County rather than using local water supply, meaning there's a lot of energy use. There's about 19% of the state's energy use is water transport and use. So you can see we use the Colorado River, we use Northern California, and as we know, this isn't a climate resilient thing. You can kind of see this, I believe, was in November of 2014, but we see those droughts that we can have. So we really need to make sure that we're having a diverse way of getting our water. I bring this up just because we just talked about stormwater being untreated and just being put into our basins, our oceans. So it can, instead of being this liability that's creating pollution, we can turn it into a liability and use that water to have stormwater capture. But that obviously is going to need some systemic change. We call it integrated water management, meaning we're treating everything as one water, because that's what it is. Instead of having these multiple systems, we really want to incorporate stormwater and make sure that we're addressing that aging infrastructure and creating green jobs, green infrastructure, climate resilience, and improving water quality, and making sure that we're mitigating those public health issues, flooding, and all of that. So what that looks like is mimicking the natural hydrological cycle. You see that here, this picture, I kind of like, it shows what you can do alongside a city. Is this picture to the right is actually what could have been a concrete canal. Rather, it's this beautiful green space that uses nature as the natural filtration system, also beautifies the neighborhood. And that's something that is going to hit home for a lot of us in terms of making sure that we have those access to green spaces as well. The red on this map means that there's not a lot of green space in the area. I think this is from the Cal Evo screen. So when we talk about these issues, they're multi-benefit issues that we can definitely work towards. We have some green infrastructure examples. Again, this bottom one is from Choyas Creek. They had this project as well as some informational pieces and just the kind of things that we envision. This is a type of wetland restoration project, not in San Diego, but something that we hope could be a part of that, as well as, like I said, some stormwater capture. Obviously, right here in Point Loma, we have the wastewater treatment facility. And when we're talking about this, we're talking about potentially adding stormwater to that system so that it can be reused and made a resource, not a liability. You see the rain barrels. This, I think, is also in Choyas Creek. This bottom picture is actually from the San Diego airport. They have been a lot better about using stormwater capture and reusing that water within their own airport for heating and cooling systems. So that, I think, is really cool. That's a picture from last year. This picture On the right is in LA. They actually have gone ahead and done a measure where they have the funding to create these kinds of projects. And I think there was going to be a ballpark that goes over this stormwater capture basin, and they were going to use that water for agriculture, so that instead of having runoff, it is a self-sufficient system. So those benefits obviously need funding. Even today, a lot of the stormwater emergencies and stormwater infrastructure repair is being taken away from general funds, taking away from other projects, as well as it's just proved to be grossly insufficient for all of the needs that stormwater has. So on January 28th, actually, the Environment Committee is going to be meeting for the city of San Diego. It is actually the first time they're meeting for 2021, so they're going to be discussing priorities, as well as the Stormwater Department has been working on this for about 2 years now, is trying to find a local funding source because it's such a huge issue that general funds are not going to do. They're obviously going to seek grants and other issues, but the city really needs to support some kind of ballot initiative to raise that stormwater fee, to fund these projects, to ensure that these stormwater projects are protecting public health, enhancing water security, improving water quality, reducing flood risk, mitigating climate change, creating green jobs, all of the great things that we just talked about. The city currently has a $1.4 billion shortfall on this. It is the city's largest liability. That's something that's been talked about by the independent budget analyst and by some audits that have been done in the past. So this is a really huge issue. And that's one of the reasons that I'm here today, is just asking people if this is something that you're interested in and something that you would like to support and be an advocate for. This meeting on this coming Thursday is a great way to do that. I'm going to link in the chat right after this presentation some more information about this, as well as instructions and a script if you would like to create public comment for this on that day. All you would have to do is call into the Zoom call, just like we're doing here. You raise your hand when the item is brought up, which would be the Stormwater Department presentation, and you would just go through our talking points. This is definitely important, definitely supported by the greater environmental community, as well as we really appreciate labor's help as well with Gretchen, Carol, Rick, love them all. So that's something that we're doing here, and I would really appreciate some help from all of you, since this is definitely an issue that we can't go putting off anymore, because last year, I believe it was 900 million. Now it's 1.4 billion. So it's definitely an issue that we need to address. So that is all that I have to say. Here is my email, which I will also put in the chat if anyone wants to copy and paste that. If anyone has any questions or issues they would like to bring up with everybody. And again, I will put that in the chat, those instructions as well as the talking points. So I will hold off here. I see some hands raised.
Yeah, you can just call on people, Lucero. Gary had chatted to me that he did, so maybe he can go first and then you call on people.
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing because it makes it a lot easier for me to see.
Okay.
Gary, go ahead. That was really great. Thank you so much. Learned a lot.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, since Jen Campbell is our representative, what kind of interactions you've had with her in her office regarding this important issue of the need to happen at the city?
Yeah, definitely. That's actually a great point to bring up. She is somebody that we've had conversations with in the past, and she definitely agrees. We just obviously still need to show up and make sure that we're letting her know that this is an issue that we care about and that should be a priority, since that's what they're doing right now in council and in the committees, is setting those priorities. She does agree also, it's a huge budget issue, and it's something that needs to be addressed. So we've had positive conversations with her. We just, need to keep moving forward.
Thank you.
Awesome. I see Susan.
Yeah, thank you. It was a great presentation, Lucero. In San Diego, we're still using Roundup. And in fact, in Sunset Cliffs Natural Park, which is right above the marine environment, they're spraying Roundup in order to control non-native invasive species. And it goes right down into the ocean. It's right above the cliffs. And why are we still using Roundup? And do you see any way that might possibly be ended? There's other places that don't use Roundup and have tried to do a more environmentally conscious and friendly way of dealing with the same issue. Even in Mission Trails Park, they use Roundup.
Yeah, definitely. I think, agriculture runoff is also a huge issue. And I know the other areas where that's something that people pursued. I'm not aware of the regulation in terms of the fertilizer and the Roundup and all of that. But that might just be an enforcement thing. And that's something that Coast Keeper sometimes does is uses the Clean Water Act and those regulations to affect change. So that's something I can definitely look into if we're not already doing something about it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I see Angela's hand up.
Hi, thank you again for your presentation. So I realize that what you're talking about is related to the storm drain system. But San Diego has also allocated a lot of funding for the Pure Water San Diego project, which is related to the waste treatment. And there's a lot of money that's been allocated to that. So I take it they're just two separate projects so that there's no way that the two get funded. Is that what's going on there?
Yeah, so Pure Water, and I think that's a little bit of the issue is that we're not seeing these issues as interconnected as much, and we want to add that stormwater component into our pure water system. And longer presentations we actually have like a little graph on that, on what the pure water system is and how the addition would create a new water source. But there's just such a huge funding gap. 1.4 billion is not nearly what would be funded by like the pure water projects, but definitely Coast Keeper really loves the pure water and was able to advocate for it when that was being passed.
And then Tommy can be next. He didn't raise his hand. He can't raise his hand. Sorry, I guess a lot of people can't raise hands today. Zoom's messing us up. Tommy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and I
Hello,
appreciate
Tommy.
it. No, I'm just very, very pleased to hear Lucero's presentation today about stormwater runoff. I'm really glad that Lucero is working with Coast Keeper, and this is a big opportunity for all of the communities in Southern California, but certainly here in San Diego, where in many cases we have opportunities to go and capture this stormwater runoff because previous generations have done 90% of the work for us to put these concrete channels in. And it's really a matter of just getting towards the edge of the coast and making sure they're able to catch a lot of this water and treat it before it goes into the sea and poisons the sea and ruins our beach. And it's a really sad thing that we have to go and catch stormwater runoff in that manner. But I think that's a real opportunity. It's a public works opportunity for here in San Diego. And to Susan's point, real quickly, you're asking about different chemicals that are used to treat bugs, fertilizers. That is really one of the worst sources of poison that goes into the sea. That's part of the reason we can't go into the ocean, because all the mesa tops where all the houses are, they all wind up coming off during rainstorms, and we have these toxic events. And we just don't have any kind of code enforcement that's really in action in the city right now. Most cities don't have particularly robust code enforcement. San Diego in particular, though, is rather lacking on that. And that's something that the city must move forward on in order to get to some kind of environmental balance. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Tommy.
Lucero, a question for you. So to your knowledge, is that something that the city of San Diego or any other coast, Del Mar, Encinitas, like that, is that anything that they're working on?
In terms of the fertilizer or in terms of funding?
In terms of not for the fertilizer, but just kind of what Tommy had mentioned, where a more comprehensive plan in terms of capture, in terms of regulation, like you said, kind of treating it all as a connected issue.
Yeah, and that's something that the Stormwater Department has been discussing for the past few years after they had that report where they said, we don't have the funding to even deal with emergencies. And what we're trying to propose is increasing that funding so that they have the opportunity to create better systems that incorporate green infrastructure, incorporate helping the environment and doing wetland restoration and those issues as well, so that we have a much better system and so that we don't have the same emergencies or the same funding shortfalls in the future. So that's something that they're working on. I'm not as aware of the other cities, and I think a lot of them have these funding issues. I'm glad that San Diego is finally kind of taking this on, and Stormwater Department is being able to present, but now we have to, as a community, say, hey, this is what we want. This is something that's important to us. Please don't set it aside any longer.
And then what, and maybe I'm sorry if this is something that I missed also, what is the Stormwater Department? Like, can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, it's within the city, there's a lot of these public works, public utility departments. So under the city, there are different departments, and stormwater generally deals with that wastewater, the flooding and those kinds of repairs. So their department is something that just has been overlooked a lot. And I think that they had some turnover in staff where they really want to make stormwater a really big topic.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then is there anything that you would just kind of in policy, like legislative things that you'd like to see or that we can kind of advocate for as members of our club?
I think that we just want to advocate for those green infrastructure projects right now. Pushing the funding is the most important part, and hopefully that'll creating potentially a ballot measure for 2022 where we're increasing this funding. I think that's going to be something that Coast Keeper is going to be pushing forward a lot. And once they move forward and are working on that ballot measure, we really want to advocate to make sure that communities of environmental priority are being put up front for environmental justice, for creating those green spaces. So right now, I think that the biggest push is funding and creating a ballot measure for that funding.
Okay, and then last question, we'll go to Gretchen, and then we'll switch into our discussion. Gretchen also couldn't raise her hand. Sorry, I don't know what's up with Zoom. No one can raise hands.
Raise my hand.
No worries.
But I just wanted to point out for everybody that we at the Progressive Labor Alliance, we did some polling late last season, and it polls really well. There's a lot of public support for this, but like Lucero was saying, the City Council needs to hear our voice too if they want to actually put this forward. And so if you just wanted to point out, if you're not able to join on Tuesday, you can still submit your public comments beforehand up to 12:45 p.m. on Tuesday. So please do click on her link and get your comments of support in there.
Can I ask a quick question to Lucero, if you don't mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
Lucero, thank you very much for your presentation. But how much do gas stations contribute to pollutions? You know, every time I fill out and I see drops of gas, drop at the floor, and I see the oil, and I imagine when it rains, all of these chemicals, and I think how many gas stations we have and how much that contributes to the.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually, just from this rain, one of our staffers took some pictures at a gas station where you could see the chemicals running off. So that's a great point to bring up. I don't know if I know the actual percentage of that being polluting, but that's kind of a great example of when we talk about that all just goes into our stormwater drains. Whenever it rains, you just see that going in there. It doesn't get treated. So if we were able to do that stormwater capture and treat that water, then we wouldn't have that issue as well. So, I mean, it's a great point. I think once you start having these conversations or you do beach cleanups or things like that, you start to see it everywhere you go and you realize how much pollution we're really creating for our planet and our ocean.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucero. If there's
you.
anything else, you can go ahead and post any links that you think are relevant in the chat. We can get those out in our outgoing emails as well. And this is timely and important. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much for the time and the questions. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Sarah, can you remind us what Gretchen just said? Tuesday at what time is the?
It's Thursday at 1 p.m. is the Environment Committee. And in my link, there will be instructions as well as the link to find the Zoom call. But if you are unable to make that meeting, though we suggest that you call in because, you know, you can have your voice and that tone. But if you're unable to make it because you have work or other reasons or other commitments, you can submit a written public comment. That link is also in, those instructions are also in that link up to 12:45 that day. So 15 minutes before that meeting.
Thank you.
All right, let's all do that. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move into the next part of our program. We two speakers speaking to the upcoming ADEM elections. So ballot already requested and have been mailed out. If you didn't get yours yet, it should be forthcoming. We received a lot of questions as to what are ADEMs, what do, what is their function within the party, all that kind of stuff. So we have two candidates that are running for ADEMs, but also that know about the structure generally and would like to speak to that. So our first speaker to that is going to be Loxie Gant. And Loxie, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Maren, I also sent you over an image. I can't screen share on my phone, and we're having construction done at my house right now and my internet is down, so I can't use my computer. But if you're able to share that link, and I can post it. Thank you. And then Maren just posted it. One of the really great tools that I spoke earlier about Progressive Delegate Network, and one of the great tools that they created to kind of explain ADEMs and what it means, they created this three-legged stool. So I actually printed it out. I never print anything, but thank you, John. Okay, great. Thank you, John. So here's the three-legged stool. Essentially, this is what makes up the California Democratic Party. And we mostly hear about delegates when it's time for in the presidential elections, but this is something so the Democratic State Central Committee is the DSCC, and we use so many acronyms, so I apologize, but that acronym is up there. And then it sort of shows the three ways that it's made up. One of the things I mentioned earlier is how Chris Ward, who currently holds now the 78 assembly delegate seat, is able to appoint delegates to serve, and I believe the number's 5. He gets to pick 5, and then usually the ADEM elections are to fill in the rest of those seats geographically from each assembly district. So if you look at that far side, the far leg says Assembly District Delegates, ADEMs. Assembly District Delegates are elected at Assembly District election meetings, ADEMs, every 2 years by you, the voters. Contrary to years past, this was kind of a bit more of inside baseball, these ADEM elections, because they, unlike Central Committee, they're not on the general ballot or primary ballot. These take place usually in a pretty insular way, and you have to physically show up to vote. This year, because of the pandemic, Joe LaCava won the 78th last year with 400 votes. So usually it took about 400 votes to win. Right now, as of now, we have 1,973 ballots out in the 78, which is a huge record-breaking number, and we're seeing record-breaking numbers like that all over the state. And this really shows that more people would be involved or invested if we really create equity and the ability to participate in democracy, regardless of having to show up somewhere on a day at a certain time to be able to participate. So this really has opened that up to a lot more people. So I'm really happy to see that. We've learned some things through COVID, and this is one of them. So I'm really grateful for that. These ballots, in order to be able to vote in this ballot, it's a really supposed to be a democratic process. And we've seen before that it didn't ever really get that tie, and that usually these party politics things are very much people that either have a job in the party or have a job of some kind at a union or work for an elected person. But what this leg of this stool is really meant to do is to be the democratic side that is elected by the people, that is responsible to the people, and can hold our elected officials accountable. And it's one of the things we saw over the last 4 years, that there's a lot of things that we need to do to hold our elected officials accountable. How to be that dissenting voice in the room when something needs to be said. So that's what ADEMs is. But then just to tell you about the rest of the party, the middle stool is county central committee appointments. County central committees consist of members who are elected every 4 years on the Democratic presidential primary ballot, along with all state, federal election, and general election. So these are how the county party works. Then we have party leadership, elected officials, and their appointments. All state and federal elected officials and state party officers are already themselves a delegate. In addition to their own vote, they get anywhere from 5 to 30 delegate appointments each. They get 1/3 of the voice within the state party. Things that happen at the state party that don't necessarily happen at the county level central committee, where Will Rodriguez Kennedy is in charge there. This is the person, it's just that on a more macro level when you look at it, but these are things that aren't just to do with the county. We're talking about propositions, measures, everything down the line from not only the party platform, but rules and resolutions, endorsements of candidates, and even talking about legislation, state and even sometimes federal legislation. And then the leadership, there's a chair and a vice chair. And earlier we were talking about Rusty Hicks, who's the current incumbent, or Delane Easton, who is the woman running against him as of now. As Gretchen mentioned, somebody else might jump in, but as of right now, those are the two, the main choices is our incumbent and then a challenger. So I think that really helped me to understand how this works, just to see it visually helped. The other thing is, unfortunately, to vote in ADEMs, that deadline has already passed. So I hope that you have your ballots. And you should have received them in the mail, but because of some mailing delays, thank you, Donald Trump, we are experiencing some delays in getting those shipped out. So you'll see that they actually just changed the deadline just on last Friday, Friday, I'm losing track of days, but they have now extended the return time for your ballot until the 3rd of February. So they gave everybody an extra week to do their due diligence and research the candidates and be able to make an informed decision. And so now we won't find out the results of that until February 9th of how the election went. So again, I'm really excited to say, in terms of ADEMs, and I'm sure everybody has questions, so we can answer those questions for you too. The one thing I did want to say for me personally, and one of the things that really got me interested in running is, and why I wanted to be involved, I think for me, so much of this stuff I realized was inside talk, and I really didn't like that. I didn't like that it was inside baseball. I wanted it to be something that comes out to everyone, that doesn't just happen behind a closed curtain. Sorry, my cat. Her name's RBG, by the way. This is my new kitten. And we, I wanted to really try and bring new people. And that was one of the reasons for our slate. We wanted to bring in people from Sunrise, climate activists, people that were boots on the ground doing work, whether it's with social justice reform, economic justice reform, and others. We really need to make sure that we're bringing people into the party that are new and fresh voices, that don't already have establishment ties to people or employment ties to people. That was kind of our main goal in bringing this about, because as you can see, the other two legs already have a lot of that going on in it already. So we really want to bring back the democracy part to that third leg. And so that's what our slate's goals are. Gretchen's going to talk after me, so I'm sure she'll talk about her slate as well. They do have some very qualified people, and people, you know, it's hard. This is a hard thing because a lot of us all work together so often that to like pit slates against each other, it's hard. But I have people, you know, throughout the state that are making their own slates, that are saying, no, I worked with this person on this slate and this person on that slate, and I totally get it. It's something that's hard. And so there's ways to go online too. So I'll post the links. You can read the candidate statements about all the candidates, really get to know them, see their photos and their pictures, look them up, see what they've done. This is your opportunity to really decide who's going to represent you on a state level. And so there's probably more questions, but yeah, that's my little summary there. And Gretchen, do you want to take it from there?
All right. So Gretchen is going to kind of fill in the gaps to that, and maybe speak a little bit to for the. It's so funny. Like, we kind of assume that people know like what's a slate. I have a lot of friends who aren't in politics like at all, and asked me actually that question, like, what is a slate? So maybe Gretchen, you can kind of fill in some of the gaps there. And
Loxie did an excellent job of covering much of the details for ADEMs. Good job.
It's not an easy thing. That's why the graphic. I'm like, I need this graphic because it's the only way.
No, the graphic is good. So I want to get into the logistics and the details of actually voting, because the ballot is a little bit confusing this year for whatever reason. I've received more than one text message photos of ballots that have been completed by friends of mine saying, see, look, I voted for you, but they voted on the wrong side. So when you receive your ballot, look everything over carefully, read everything twice. When you're going to vote for your people, vote on the bubbles on the left-hand side and not the right-hand side. So for the 78th Assembly District, we have bubbles on both sides, but names are only on one side. So again, bubbles on the left-hand side, and make sure that you're using your properly colored pen and you're completely filling in your bubble. Just like we make sure that we do when we're voting in the other elections. So that was one thing to cover. The results are going to be posted on adem.cadem.org. I shared that link with all of you. Like Loxie said, they'll be posted on February 9th. There is a lot of ballots out there. Like Loxie said, there's almost 2,000 ballots for our assembly district. And we have no way of knowing exactly who has a ballot. That's not provided by the party if you request it. So it's a little bit of a game of how many folks did you sign up personally to go and request their ballot? And then how good are you about making sure that your friends and Democrats and other community organizations know about this and receive the ballot and then fill it out and get it back in the mail. So we're coming into our final weeks of getting these ballots back in. Again, the deadline has been extended so that the ballot must be received by February 3rd. So don't mail it on February 3rd, mail it in as soon as possible and get that in there. If there are any questions, like if you have not received your ballot, you should definitely go to that link and contact the party saying, where is my ballot? I filled it out. I filled out my request. I'd really like my ballot. If you had not requested a ballot, it is too late to do so at this point. And I'm sorry for that. What else? There was pretty much, that was that. For slates, I mean, it says people determining who they want to run with, because it's a numbers game, folks, of like, you're trying to identify, at least for our slate, those that have name recognition and a good solid background for their work that they've been doing in the community and also in the party. We felt really strongly that we wanted to identify folks that could be held accountable to the community because the community knows who they are. And as we proceed forward with attending the convention, these are the folks we feel in our mind that you're going to have the most access to share what values you want them to bring forward and to voice. I'd also share that our slate is also filled with dissenting voices, strong dissenting voices. So when things are occurring that aren't right, we feel free to stand up and rise up and make our voices heard. I would say the same thing about the other slate as well. They do a very good job on that. So that, wait, there's questions about bubbles now.
Okay, Gary, go ahead.
Question, comment. I've just learned recently, I work for Mike Schaefer at the Board of Equalization as his chief deputy, and we're going to have 6 appointments. But we're kind of waiting because we want to see who gets selected from the Central Committee, for the San Diego County Central Committee, as well as ADEMs. But some people, I understand, are running on a slate and are also already have a spot from the Central Committee, which is unfortunate because they will get elected to one and then they're taking up a spot for a grassroots person to get. So I wonder how we can make that better in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to be determined, I think. Gary, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, do not vote for more than 14 candidates. If you vote for more than 14, then your entire ballot is thrown out. So vote for up to 14, but no more than 14.
The other part I was going to share is the one thing is it's people self-identifying women, and then self-identifying female, and then other than female. So it is 7 of each. You'll also see on your ballot there's an asterisk for an e-board delegate. Gretchen has one next to her name. I do not. What that means is the person who gets the most votes within that has an asterisk next to their next to their name will be on the e-board, and will also now, because of new rules, have a seat on San Diego Central Committee as well. So there's a lot of other things that go to that, but don't really pay too much attention to the asterisks. That's more later things, but really
a big difference from previous ADEM elections, because if you wanted to run for that seat, it was a separate seat, and then you had to go to explain to everybody, no, you got to vote for me here as a delegate, and you got to vote for me over here. And now it's a little bit more streamlined. So whoever gets the most votes wins.
Yeah, so don't worry about the asterisks, but worry more that you're doing 7 men and 7 women and other than women. Identify. Yes.
I had a quick question or maybe comment for Gary. So in terms of the appointments, and I think that this was like kind of talked around with the stool, that there are the people that run, and then there are the Central Committee people, and then there are the people that are appointed. In terms of waiting for seeing who's elected to see who gets appointed, how do most people pick who they appoint?
I mean, everybody picks differently. I know for Mike Schaefer's office, since he represents 5 counties on the Board of Equalization, San Diego, Orange, Riverside, part of San Bernardino, Imperial, I've made it an effort since he got elected in 2018, and I went to work for him to appoint people from every county that we represent, because just to be fair and include people. So that's how we've done it. I don't know how other people do it, but it's usually people they know, or I know sometimes people call and write their representative and let them know they're interested to be considered, and you can get appointed that way.
Okay. And then Sonara, you had a question for Gretchen or Loxie as well.
Yeah, my question was directed towards Loxie. So Loxie, the slides that you were sharing were from the Progressive Democratic Network, the Progressive Delegate Network. And I recognize that name. So I wanted to ask, so I recognize that name because there was recently some discussion about their tactics on Facebook. Specifically, apparently the Progressive Democratic Network was sending texts that weren't terribly clear, and I was looking for a screenshot of it, and of course now I can't find it, out to voters basically saying, do you want to vote in the Democratic election? And then giving the option of writing back no. And if they didn't write back no, the Progressive Democratic Network was then going out and requesting ballots for people that people themselves weren't requesting, that the Progressive Democratic Network themselves was requesting these ballots. And, I find that technique to be fairly questionable. It would explain in part why we have such a much larger voter pool now. But then, the Progressive Democratic Network, since it's done this mass voter request, the only candidates that show up on that link that you provided are your slate. Everyone else isn't even shown there. So you have a third-party organization that is sending a not too informative text and then directing them, these voters that really don't know what they're signing up for, because in many cases it was an opt-out, not an opt-in, and then sending them a link to their website. I don't know how that's fair to candidates that aren't part of the Progressive Democratic Delegate Network. And I guess my question is, what is your affiliation with them as well? I know you're on their slate and you were using their slides.
You're muted.
You're on mute.
The cats were fighting at my feet, so I muted my phone. Sorry. Yes. So I had already been interested in ADEMs when I signed up. And I was very active in Micah Perlin's campaign as well as Sarah Davis's campaign for 78. And within my activist network, I was contacted to be a part of the PDN slate that they were setting up. And it's no surprise that Chris would not ask me to be on his slate. So I agreed, but I had to, they asked questions in order to qualify people to be on their slate. I was going to run regardless of being on a slate. But yes, they contacted me, and then it was sort of this way that they qualified candidates to see if you fit in with their how they felt about ideas and issues. And so I did, I guess the way I answered those questions was appropriate, and how with the questionnaire that they sent. So other than that, I don't know who the people are. I don't know where the money comes from. I have no idea. But I do believe that with that was if you just said yes, you'd like them to sign you up, then you would get a ballot. And if you get that ballot, on the ballot comes where to find the candidate statements on the California Democratic Party website. So it's not necessarily sending people back to their website to only see those candidates. So I'm not sure. It was not part of like our assembly district that had anything to do with that. So I don't know. It was just a way to advertise your candidacy. But I do believe one of the things that I really do adhere to that PDN really wanted to do was this idea of opening up this process and making it a much more democratic process than those of us that are just really active in clubs, or really that have already been candidates, or that, know people. They wanted to make it open up more. And so I know that was the main goal. That was the intent. So I think that their intent was to make this a much bigger, broader scaled adventure into getting into the state party level.
We have one last question before we go to our next speaker, and that's going to go to Carrie.
So I filled out the questionnaire and the survey to be on the slate with the PDN as well, and didn't receive it. I received the text message saying, would you like a ballot? And didn't say that they were with the ADEMs. I understand that there's a lot of frustration with that. There's also on the other side, we received a random text message today from someone called Sam with California for Jobs and Justice that was highlighting my slate, the Progressive Unity slate, except they had omitted Josie Caballero and Katie Meyer. And we were like, who are these people? We know who Josie and Katie are, but who was this other entity, and how are they doing this? And this is one of those unfortunate moments when, as we've transitioned away from the normal way of doing this, when we had a big meeting and it was like, bring all your friends and everybody, and all of us engage and listen to all each other's speeches. And now you have a different mechanism for how people are engaging and sharing these ballots and trying to get these ballots in. And there's some loopholes in there, and we'll see where it goes.
Both of our slates have experienced it, and it's not necessarily things that we have done. So yeah,
right, exactly.
Thank you for being that. I got that text too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who is Sam?
I don't we definitely had a group text about that of who's Sam. Yeah.
Sam is with a big pack. I don't know. My question would be for maybe John, or maybe Gretchen. So it's my understanding. So for example, on my ballot here, Jess Durfee, who's a friend of mine, is listed, but he gets a position from the Central Committee. But for example, if some of the people elected could go from the Central Committee, but they're elected from the ADEMs, then I guess we could not select people who are runner-ups from the ADEMs and appoint them from the Central Committee because they're not members, alternates, or associates. Would that be correct?
This might be a better question for John, but from my understanding, like then they go in order of who got the most votes. Like if one of them removes himself from the ADEM because they have a different position, they get to choose first, choose which position they want to pursue because they have different nuances with them. And then it goes to the next one in line. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, this is John. Yeah, just to say, yeah, Gretchen is exactly correct. And that on the ADEM level, yeah, if somebody gets to be a delegate by some other means, in the past at least, they've always dropped down to the next highest vote getter in the ADEM. The complication always comes to do with timing. And there's complications here because of the timing with the ADEMs here is pushed out. And they've extended the timing because you have to get everything in so people know who are going to be the delegates for the convention. And so yeah, dropping ADEMs down is possible, but dropping Central Committee things down is possible. And then also with my cynical hat, which I'm at liberty to say these days, and maybe not before last Tuesday, don't confuse democracy with parties. Right? Parties have methods of doing things that aren't necessarily fit into that big democratic picture. And so there may be tactical reasons why people choose to get to the convention in more than one way that would block out other people from getting seats at the convention. And that is a tactic that some people use and have used in the past. So some people believe in the idea of getting as many voices there to the convention, some people not so much.
Well, I know in San Francisco, where I used to live, the Democratic Central Committee there is made up of 25 to 30% of elected officials on the Board of Supervisors, school board, because they run slates that they want people with name ID, so they run them on their slates, even though these people don't really have, generally the time to commit to their job on the Central Committee. So, so I think it's unfortunate when people with high name ID run on these slates when they already could go from the Central Committee, because I think we should have more people involved. So anyway, thanks.
Okay, all right. So thank you so much, Gretchen, Loxie, and then Gary. We kind of pulled you into that also, but thank you to Gary. That was a good discussion, and thank you for all of you. Okay, so moving into our last part of our program, we are going to hear from former City Council President Pro Tem Barbara Bree, and she's brought a guest along with her, Kathy Jolly, about a support of a community initiative that some people are working on in Ocean Beach and Point Loma. So Barbara, I'll hand it over to you, and then you can intro Kathy, and I think that you maybe wanted to speak together, so I'll hand it over to you.
Well, thank you, Maren. And Loxie and Gretchen, that was a great explanation of ADEMs, which is, even though this is a group of active Democrats, the ADEM process is not at all clear. And of course, it's changed this year because of the pandemic. And I thought John's comments about parties don't always equal democracy was very interesting. I also got that very strange text message. I didn't know who it was from. I have voted and my husband has voted. So hopefully we filled out our bubbles the right way, not like in Florida. So as you know, I ended my term on the City Council on December 10th. Later that day, a new council was sworn in. And later that day, there was an 11-hour and 40-minute meeting to elect a new council president. And before I left the council, I endorsed Monica Montgomery to be the next council president because I felt she was the most qualified candidate. I had worked with both Monica and Jennifer Campbell for the last 2 years, and actually sat next to Jennifer Campbell when we went in person. And was very discouraged to see that Jennifer Campbell won. And the next day I was on KUSI talking about it. And then I wrote a commentary for Times of San Diego about that. We really saw clearly the special interests getting their way. The special interests wanted Jennifer Campbell to be the council president because they believed they could control her better. And even before December 10th, there was a recall movement starting in Council District 2. I wasn't going to get engaged in it at all until the council president vote happened. And I'm supporting this movement, but I am not the leader. So I would like to introduce Kathy Jolly, who is one of the leaders of the Recall Jen movement. And she can talk about why many community leaders are involved in this, what the timeline looks like. And she's also here with Bridger Langford, another District 2 resident who is very involved in the recall movement. So Kathy.
Thank you. I'm a 20-year resident of Pacific Beach and a kindergarten teacher. Council President Campbell has shown again and again that for her, the deal is done before she reaches out to her constituents. I'd like to share my sort of last straw moment with her. Some Pacific Beach leaders, including myself, were invited to have a meeting with her and her staff to give input on the MOU. They were still crafting it. We were told repeatedly, we want your input, we want to hear what you think, we want you to help us craft this compromise. And 5 days later, she had a press conference presenting the MOU that was dated the day prior to the day that she met.
Kathy, explain what the MOU was about.
The MOU was about short-term vacation rentals and how she was going to, how we were going to handle that. We asked tons of questions. Are there carve-outs? What's your time frame? And we were repeatedly told, we're not there yet. We're just starting this process. We want your input. We're just seeking community input. But 5 days later, she had a press conference and the MOU had been dated the day prior to our meeting. So our meeting was just a complete sham. Once again, the deal was done before she spoke to any of us. This movement is personal for me. It's not motivated by gender or political parties or sexual orientation or just D2 issues. Having Dr. Jen serve as our council president makes her habit of putting powerful lobbyists before her constituents a citywide problem. And that's why this movement is gaining citywide support. What we want and expect from our council member and our council president is truth and trust and transparency. And I and other community leaders repeatedly feel betrayed by Dr. Jen. Now that she has even more power, I don't want others to be betrayed as I've been. So I'm really hoping that you will consider joining this movement. And I'd like to roll it over to Bridger, who's going to fill in some more details, fill in some more holes on this. And then if you'd like, we can take questions or comments. So Bridger, you want to unmute you?
Yeah, so before Bridger goes, I will say that a few Democratic clubs have endorsed the recall movement. The La Jolla Democratic Club and the San Diego County Women's Democratic Club have both endorsed the recall movement.
Thank you, David, for the definition of MOU.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Bridger Langford. I live up on Sapphire in the north of the district. I really got involved in this right after the council pres vote. I actually was listening to a talk by the United Women of East Africa, who from representing our minority communities in San Diego, and they really spoke about this as just a total betrayal of their the people's pick for the council president. I just want to observe the sort of timing of this recall. We in the last week we saw the inauguration of Joe Biden. We saw the Democrats locally take a significant majority. I believe that this is the time with the Democrats in power that we can begin to reform our party locally. This reform is centered around the issue of the special interest power and the corruption of our representative democracy. I just wanted to speak a little bit about the process. In the next couple weeks, likely next week, we will be filing, serving a statement to the council president's office, which explains the reasons why we are calling for her recall. After this, there's a 21-day period where the council president's office will provide a written response. Then that starts the clock running on a 99-day period in which the movement will begin a signature gathering effort to collect somewhere approximately 15,000 signatures. We'll likely be going for more than that to ensure we have enough signatures if there are errors in the signature gathering. One of the things that's been clear as I've been working on this is that people citywide are frustrated. We have working with us are the Racial Justice Coalition, the Sunrise Movement, We Stand United, the Change Begins With Me. The list of activist organizations joining goes on and on. We wholeheartedly, we need support. We need people on the ground to help us with signature gathering. And of course, we need to raise funds for our contingency plan, which is if we don't have enough volunteers that we can, have signature gatherers go out for us. So we ask for your help. And, I humbly am here to, Kathy, myself, and others are here to respond to your questions and concerns. Would be happy to open up the floor now. Thank you.
I had a question. So, I mean, I've known Jen and Suzanne for a long time, and I think she's a very nice person, but I don't think she's a good leader. And leadership is different than somebody who you may, like personally, as Barbara, Bridger, and Kathy have said. As I've been talking to people about this, at the Central Committee, certainly, people say, well, that's fine, but by the time the recall qualifies for the ballot in September or whenever it might be, it's very close to the March primary. So how would you leaders respond to that, in an intellectually constructive way?
Yeah, for me, this, I'll take a first crack at it, and if anyone else would like to jump in, that's fine. But for me, I see that our city is in crisis. We have, a housing crisis, a racial justice crisis, a climate crisis. All of these things, are interconnected and constantly are impacting the most vulnerable in our city. I believe Campbell, with her control and therefore the special interest control of our legislative agenda, we open ourselves up to risk of, damage to and continued lack of progress in dealing with these crises.
Bridger, let me break in. I have two comments. First of all, I think the primary is June this time, so it's a little more time. But first of all, I support the impeachment of Donald Trump, even though he's not the president anymore. If you do something wrong, there should be penalties and repercussions. A member of the city council who does not respect their constituents should not be allowed to serve. And second, she might consider running again for council. She's allowed to have a second term, and hopefully this will prevent that from happening also.
Gary, the city is in crisis, as Bridger said. We don't have this. We don't have the luxury of time right now. We really need to move forward on all of the issues that Bridger brought forward and more. We don't have the luxury of time, unfortunately.
Thanks, Kelly. You know, things are happening every week. I mean, for example, well, I think it was last week or perhaps it was the week before, Gamble chose to limit public comment, which, you know, with the last two council presidents, this has rarely happened. She limited public comment when the people showed up to speak about the unequal policing at the protest here in Pacific Beach, where we saw, you know, insurrectionists and you know, anti-insurrectionists show up. Instead of hearing out these people, she blocked public comment. And we heard from the Racial Justice Coalition today, who are concerned that these kinds of things will continue to happen.
As somebody, and I think all of us were at the forefront of flipping this district, and it was a hard fought battle. And I helped lead the opposition campaign against then Councilmember Lori Zaff. So I have a very intimate familiarity with how risky it is to move forward with something like this and have it flip back to being a Republican. And the Republicans are definitely looking at this district and they are just chomping at the bit to pick this seat back up. So they will coalesce around one of their candidates. And then Bridger and Barbara and Kathy, if you can talk to the rest of the process. If you're successful in your recall effort, you gather enough signatures. To my understanding, it triggers the question on the ballot, do you wish to recall Dr. Jen Campbell? And then the next question is, who do you want to replace her? So at the same time that you're running a recall effort, you're gonna have a campaign to replace her. And somebody's gonna be successful in that effort. And it's coming without a real campaign. And I know how this district operates and who turns out to vote in special elections. And that is how Kevin Faulconer thinks that he can go and become the governor, frankly, with a special election and a recall effort. Mm-hmm. So what does that timeline look like? And I'm really nervous about something like this and this seat in this district flipping back to the Republicans when we worked so hard to get a Democrat elected. In my mind, if she's not serving well and she needs to be doing a better job, you either force her to do the better job or you oust her the next election.
So
what does that look like?
Two thoughts, a few thoughts. You bring up some good points, Gretchen. First of all, Jennifer overwhelmingly defeated Lori. I mean, it was not even close at the end. And I've sat next to both of them. And in many ways, Lori, even as a Republican, and I campaigned for Jen, as you know, and I did a fundraiser for her at my house. I was, and I've been very
with you. Yeah.
So, but I think the registration in the district has changed enormously. Bridger, do you have the registration numbers in the district in terms of Democrat? It has changed enormously. It is a jungle election. So if the proponents of the recall movement are successful in collecting the signatures, that triggers an election between 90 and 120 days later. And as Gretchen noted, first you're asked yes or no on the recall. And then second, you have a group of candidates and you vote for one of them. Even if you vote no on the recall, well, you don't have to vote for a candidate, but you probably should. But I do believe that the district is democratic enough at this moment in time, and hopefully the Democrats will coalesce around one or two candidates.
John, just Thixton is here as well. I wanted to see if he had any comments on this. He has some ideas about how we're going to Gretchen, we're tremendously concerned about this as well. We don't want a Republican in that seat at all. And that we're, part of this movement. We are going to be registering voters as well, to help get out the vote. John, I did want to just turn it over to you. You had some ideas about how to strategize around not allowing a Republican in here.
Yeah, so the movement is singularly focused on removing Jennifer Campbell from that seat that she's sitting in now. And the reason is because of her betrayal, primarily, of the voters of District 2. And frankly, her betrayal of the voters of the entire city at this point, given what happened on December 10th. So with that, and with the energy and the power that the movement is putting together, we expect that the movement will have a big say, that is all of us and all of you, in who that candidate is going to be. And we expect to speak to each of the candidates, some of whom we've been approached by already, about falling in line behind whoever the movement determines are the best two or possibly three candidates. There's nobody here that has any expectation that there's going to be another Democrat sitting in that seat. And we have got incredible support coming in from all over the city, not to mention the support that we have in D2 for this. I have yet to meet, and I frankly think all of you are probably either supportive of the movement or you're sitting on the fence. Nobody's on the side, or nobody's on the other side of this. Save those special interests that say that they're circling the wagons to preserve this person in office. So frankly, to be quite honest, I think that there is just very little question that at the end of the day, that there's going to be a Democrat in that seat. And given the demographics and given the voting, the number of registered Democrats within the district, I just don't think that there's going to be much question about that. We expect this special election to take place in November. We expect to have well over 20,000 signatures in mid-late May. The clerk has 30 days to review those signatures to be sure that we have the 14,400 or so that we need. And then they turn it over to the council, and the council at their next meeting is required to set a special election as Barbara described. So I want to assure you that everybody who's inside this movement is aware and cognizant of what the goal is here, and we intend to reach that goal.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other comments before I address the motion that's been made and the second? No? Okay, so there is a motion on the floor from Susan Panotto that moved that the Point Loma Democratic Club support the recall. Gary Warchak is the second. So if all of you are seeing those VM pop up next to your names, that's voting.
So I can't do it fast enough. I didn't know we were going to do a vote. So I'm sorry, but there's a lot of people who actually are not eligible to vote. And there's a lot of people who are, but I haven't been able to get there fast enough to establish the number of voting members.
Okay.
Could this also be put on a future meeting and agendized to the whole club?
Yes.
As well.
This is a support, excuse me, Marion, this is a support position and not an endorsement. And what the other clubs have done is taken this as not an endorsement, but just as a position of support.
Mm-hmm. Ruth, you had a comment?
Yes, I got into the meeting a little bit late, so I didn't hear the motion, but I think if we were going to take an action on this, it should have been published 2 weeks ago that it was being considered. So I think you should put it off until at least the next meeting.
Angela, how are you going? And how do you think you'll be able to get to the remainder of the people in terms of credentialing? Or
I'm working on it, but it takes a few minutes because I have to rename everybody.
Okay.
So
Angela, I'm helping you out too. I think we'll be able to.
So are you you do have the list. So the thing is that it's more complicated than you may think, because it's not just the people who renewed in 2021, it's also people who were eligible to vote in 2020. And you may not have that information, but if you work off the list of the 2021 folks, I can then work on the people who are not on the 2021 list.
And I'm working on 2020.
Okay, and then John, you had
You are.
something. I think you just texted. What would you had something also?
Yeah, just to Ruth's point about the notice being required, because this has come up at other clubs, and I checked in my previous role with Will as the chair. But yes, this is not an endorsement and is not a resolution, and therefore it's not required.
It's a support motion.
Sorry, I was talking to the point Ruth had made.
Mhm.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, if you want to make a substitute motion, you could make a substitute motion that could then has to be discussed and could be voted on.
Mhm. So that's where we're at now. So we have this motion and we have a second. We do have the option of somebody making a substitute motion as well.
I would make a substitute motion.
Gary, yes, go ahead. And your substitute motion is?
It's my understanding what John is suggesting is that the substitute motion is that the club supports the recall of Jen Campbell. Is that correct?
Support motion, yeah.
Yes, a support motion to endorse the recall of Jen Campbell.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah, that's my motion.
Okay. And second?
A point of inquiry.
What's that?
Can I have a point of inquiry? Like, so
Okay.
the special guests have arrived and given their case, but has Dr. Jen Campbell herself been invited to address the group and to counter?
She is, of course, always invited to attend all of our meetings.
Okay.
Is a member as
She knew,
well.
like, that this was coming, because I mean, in my mind, like how you build power and change things is you put it direct in their face of like, this is what we're going to do unless you come and talk to us, and these are the changes we want to see. And but maybe we're at the point where you don't want to see changes.
Yeah. So that's also why I'm asking if anybody has a substitute motion that it might seem where we could do that, right? Where we could vote on it at February.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Second. Okay, so we basically have competing motions.
My
here.
motion, was my motion overlooked, or?
Oh, what's that?
I made a motion before that.
For the support motion? For the support motion?
Did.
Okay. Okay, so I guess perhaps we can
Then
incorporate.
Gretchen asked a question, but was there a second? Nobody was given an option to second my motion.
I think Susan has a chance to speak to her motion, though.
Gary, to me, to my mind, I'm not quite sure how yours and Susan's are different. It's the support motion, the motion to support, to support a support motion for the recall, right?
Okay, maybe it's the same. If it is, then
okay.
The original motion.
But Gretchen has made a postpone to the February meeting, and that motion takes precedence, and you vote on that motion first. And if it passes, then
actually, the motion that takes precedent is the one that Susan made. So Susan, can you speak to yours?
that's not true. If you have a motion to postpone, you vote on the motion to postpone first.
Doug, I never even got to speak to my motion. Shouldn't I get that chance first?
Yeah, you should have had that opportunity. But once a motion to postpone,
Okay,
then
that's true. Well, Susan, let me go ahead. Susan, go ahead.
All right. The reason I made the motion is because there's really no way that we can approach voters and as Democrats and say that our candidates are good Democrats if we cannot hold them accountable, if they do whatever they want to do. And I think if you look at the results of the voting that came out of the Measure E vote, you will, which is the vote to raise the height limit in the Midway district, you will see that overwhelmingly was voted against by the voters of her very own district, all up and down the coast. No one wanted that. Where did that come from? I mean, that was not on the agenda. That was not asked for by her constituents. That was something, an agenda that came from outside the district, and that she supported. And it's we have got to be able, we have got to be able to hold our electeds accountable, or we're no different from Republicans. We cannot say that we're better if they vote the same way.
And so, Doug, yes, you are correct about the motion to postpone. So there are lots of, this is hard. There are lots of valid points here. Thank you everybody for talking about this. So now that Angela and Kip have had the time to credential everybody, that motion does take precedent, the motion to postpone. So if you have a VM next to your name, you can vote. So all of those in favor of postponing the vote about.
Maren, sorry
Go ahead.
to interrupt. Sorry, this is John. I can't raise my hand, but I think, and Doug can correct me, but I think on the motion that Gretchen made,
yes,
she would get to talk to it, and then people can talk against it, and then there will be a discussion on that. And then you can vote on that, vote it up or down, and then revert to the main motion.
Okay, go ahead, Gretchen.
Thank you. I'm not disagreeing that Dr. Jen is not doing a good job. I feel stabbed in the back too about the short-term vacation rentals. It's one of the top hot topics of our region. But where I have a disagreement now is that I feel like this should be agendized and inform all of our members, so then they have a chance to join in this discussion. And then also the chance to invite Dr. Jen Campbell and feel the heat from this group too, and hold her accountable. If she's like, look, I have no interest in talking to you, that says something right then and there, but at least we are empowering our members to join this discussion, because this is a huge deal. I mean, we're talking about a special election here. All of us are going to have to be working our hearts out if we're going to be committed to this. And I just want to see the robust discussion. And I think you're also going to get a lot of attention media-wise for doing something like that, rather than having this kind of like skirt under the radar and not enough people pay attention to it. I think if you bring more people into the fray of the conversation, it's going to create a stronger argument, and you're going to get a lot more attention, and you're going to get your way.
Okay. Anybody would like to speak against?
I would, but I can't raise my hand. But if somebody else has their hand raised that wants to speak against first, they should go ahead.
Of those two raised hands, I think I see Gary and Doug. Would one of you like to speak?
No, I wanted to speak for it, not against it.
Okay. Gary, did you want to speak for it or against it?
I wanted to speak against it, but I would cede to John.
Okay. Go ahead, John.
Okay, I was going to say I would cede to you, Gary, but no, I'm happy to go ahead. Yeah, a couple of things, Gretchen. I think if you go back in time, you haven't been at some of the previous meetings that the Point Loma Democratic Club has held recently. We had a very interesting and informative meeting about the height measure that Dr. Campbell attended, and presentations were made both on the history of how the measure been passed, with a lot of informed, people from the community. And Dr. Jane, when she got her chance, the very first question that was asked from the audience, she took umbrage to and stomped off the Zoom meeting. And that, kind of set a tone. And there have been other incidents, not at Point Loma, but elsewhere, where similar incidents have occurred, that when faced with issues that the community has brought forward that she's not happy to talk to, she chooses to get up and leave the meeting. This includes nonprofits that I'm involved with as well, that Bridger alluded to some of them earlier. So I think for all these reasons, yeah, a motion to postpone, seems reasonable, but bear in mind the people on the call today are the people who regularly attend the Point Loma Democratic Club and have been present in all these previous meetings. If we postpone, what you'll see is there'll be a lot more people suddenly interested to come and tell us, the club, what we should be doing on this instance if we push it off. If we vote today, it'll be the voice of the club voting. If we push it off, we all know what will happen at this occasion next meeting, with both sides looking to rally their own, groups. This discussion has been going on at this club for months. And people are well aware of it and had the opportunity to come and address the club and chose not to. So I pushed very strongly that we should go ahead, given that Angela's had a chance to credential people today and take a vote today. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak to it?
Yes, I would.
Go ahead.
Okay. I agree with Gretchen. I think it's a matter of due process and proper notice. You know, all club members have an opportunity to vote. This is an important item that if it was going to be discussed today, it should have been put on the agenda. I read the agenda. There was no indication whatsoever that this was going to be discussed. And I think that a matter of this magnitude ought to be noticed to the membership, and due process requires that the affected party, who would be Dr. Jen Campbell in this case, should be given the opportunity to address. I'm not sure the outcome would be different, but I think that it's important that we follow due process. And so I would, for the reasons that Gretchen said, I would recommend that we postpone till next month.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes.
Question. So by postponing that, are we going to halt on collecting signatures to recall Dr. Jen Campbell?
Oh, this has nothing to do with that. This is just the club itself voting to postpone the vote until the next meeting.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yes, this is Ruth, and I agree with Gretchen. And I think that we should put it on an agenda and vote on it next month.
Okay. Okay.
As for, because what John said is basically, he said, if you're not here, you shouldn't really vote. And I don't agree with that. I think that people that are not here should be allowed to vote, as long as they show up next month. If they don't, well, then they don't care one way or the other.
Okay. And then alternating, Barbara, I'll call on you next with your hand raised. That's the only other hand I see.
Great, thank you. I think John made a really good point that if this club has a great deal of experience with Jennifer Campbell, and if it's put on the agenda for next month, you're going to get an influx of new people who could be from anywhere, and they won't really represent your club. Or I'm a member of this club, our club.
I have to disagree with that, Barbara, because under the thing, if you haven't paid your dues by now, I don't think you can vote.
That's not true. We give people until January 31st. And in fact, we actually give them until March, generally have been, but definitely according to the bylaws, January 31st.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Barbara was talking about new people suddenly joining.
And they wouldn't be allowed to vote.
And they wouldn't be allowed to vote. Is that correct, Ruth?
So we would allow, Angela, can you explain?
So are you talking about people suddenly joining the club who just want to vote in February?
Can you explain why that wouldn't, can you explain
So
how that
generally what we do is that if you attend a meeting and you join at the same time, you then become an active member. But what we've been doing of late is you need to join before, because we're doing things virtually. And if you've joined before and then you attend a meeting, that meeting, you then become an active member.
Mm-hmm.
So to restate that, this is Judith Coker. So to restate that, if someone became aware of this vote coming up, they could join prior to the meeting, and then they could vote at the meeting.
Yes.
So that is an issue. I'm not for it or against it, but it is an issue about what would happen down the road.
Yes, correct. Thanks, Judith. Yes. Okay. Let's take two more comments just because it's getting late. Gary and Gary, I'll go to you next.
Okay. As much as I love you and respect you, Ruth, I mean, this is a tough thing. I mean, a lot of us like Jen Campbell as a person, But it's not about that. It's about the leadership and the lack of leadership of what she has shown as our council member, and particularly by accepting the special interest encouragement to run for president instead of allowing somebody who was the most qualified to be the president of the city council. So I think we just have to bite the bullet. I don't want to see a bunch of people flood this club like they've done to the environmental Dems before, which Tommy could speak to, and pack the meeting before the meeting and take away our right. If it was different, I would agree with you and with Gretchen to hold off. But I think we have to step up and we need to get involved in making this happen. And we need to make sure that a good Democrat is running as well as collecting signatures.
Okay. So we have now 3 comments for, 3 comments against, and it's getting pretty late. All of you that have VM next to your name, you're eligible to vote. So a vote for yes is to postpone, and a vote for no means let's vote on this now.
So, and are people able to do that in their in the reactions, or because you might have to raise your hand?
Yes, and so because of John, go ahead, John.
Excuse me, but only some versions and some setups allow you to do the no.
Yeah, okay. John, can you explain how we're going to do the voting?
Yeah, no, sure. Yeah, but everybody who spoke is correct. Sometimes the yes and no, Zoom changed it recently, is a little confusing. So the easiest way is if we lower all the hands.
Everybody lower your hands.
Yeah, and I'll do that here. So all the hands are lowered. Okay, and then we'll take the yeses first. If everybody wants to raise their hand to vote yes, which as Merrin said is a vote to postpone to next month's meeting, then raise your hand now.
Okay, so
don't use the green or red, just use the raise hand, which is either in the participants tab or in the reactions.
Leslie, you are as NBM is non-voting member. Okay, so a vote to yes is to postpone it to next time. If you that means raise your hand to postpone it to next time. If you want to postpone it to the next meeting, raise your hand.
Okay, and so everybody who wants to vote, please vote. Everybody who wants to vote, please vote.
Hang on a second.
Everybody wants to vote, please vote.
Okay.
And now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and lower all the hands.
Okay, wait a second. I want to see them all. I'm counting still. Hang on.
Can you see them, Merritt? Yep.
You can also take a photograph of the screen just to have.
I have done that. Yeah.
You did it already, John. Okay, I have 7.
There are 6 hands raised. Yeah.
Okay.
So if everybody's voted who wants to vote, I'll now go ahead and lower all the hands.
Okay.
And now
John's going to lower the hands.
Yeah. So everybody's hand should be lowered.
So the no vote means we're going to vote on the support motion now.
Correct. Yeah. So please go ahead and raise your hands.
If you're a no, if you want to do the support motion now. I know. I see you, Kip. I see your actual hand.
So we do have some people, just pay attention, who are voting, who actually are non-voting.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to.
That means you're not allowed to vote.
Yeah. So I'm going to lower Wadad's hand as a non-voting member.
A raised hand now means that that's a no vote. That means that you think we should vote on the support motion at this meeting, not February.
Correct. And I can't raise my hand as the host, so you can add me to that
Okay,
number.
so that's 13, so that would be then 14.
Correct.
Okay.
So this motion fails.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll go ahead and lower all the hands, and we can revert to the original motion.
Okay. Okay, so that was the voting on the postponement motion. So now we're going to revert to the original one,
That's correct.
which is the one that Susan made to vote in support now. Okay, Barbara, yes, go ahead. Do you have a question? Okay, it was just raised for something.
Yeah, I had a question.
Question?
Yeah, what is a non-voting member? What makes somebody non-voting?
So,
oh, go ahead, Angela, sorry.
So in the interest of time, Doug, I did not know we were voting today, so I did not go through the process of credentialing. So all that NVM means today is you're not eligible to vote. And it may be because you're not a member. So I agree, I shouldn't have used the term NVM.
Okay.
Or it means that you are, but you are not eligible for you're a guest, you came as a guest.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Okay.
primarily the people, but there's also people who, I think pretty much today, the people who are in the category of not able to vote are the guests.
Okay, I was just confused. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay. So the motion to postpone has failed. So now let's go to the next one, which is the motion to vote it now. So can we put hands down?
Well, so are you going to have people speak to the motion?
Yes. So Susan already spoke to the motion. Sorry, I'm kind of getting ahead of things here and getting a little tired of Zoom head. So Susan, your talk that you gave before counts for you, right? So that's Susan's saying that she's in favor. Okay, so now would anybody like to speak against
the motion? Please repeat the motion.
Susan, can you repeat your motion? It's in the chat too. Here, I'll scroll up. It's
in the chat. I would like to move at the Point Loma Democratic Club support the recall of, I didn't put it correctly, Dr. Jennifer Campbell.
Okay.
City Council member, District 2.
Okay. And then, so Susan spoke to that. So that's one person speaking in favor of it. Do we have anybody speaking against this motion? Gary Werchak seconded it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and lower all the hands because there were some hands up from earlier. So all the hands have been lowered. So
a raised hand now doesn't, all a raised hand means now is that you would like to speak against this motion. Diane, who was put it in the chat. Okay, Ruth, you'd like to speak against? Go ahead.
I'm speaking against it for the same reason I was supporting the other motion. I think that the vote should be delayed for 1 month. And then everyone will have more information.
Okay. Do we have another speaker in favor? Okay, I think we've talked about all of this kind of with the prior one. Okay, so now we're going to vote if we should vote now. The motion. Okay, can we roll the hand? Yeah, we had equal, Susan for and Ruth against.
So just restate the motion so everybody is crystal clear.
Right now, a yes vote means that we are voting to take a vote to support the recall of Jennifer Campbell and following this vote.
Is it a no vote or is it the vote?
This is the vote.
This is in support of Susan's motion, which is to support the recall of Dr. Jennifer Campbell.
Okay, sorry, I thought we had to back into it the other way first. I'm sorry, you guys. I have kind of a lot going on at my house right now.
No worries.
Okay, yeah, sorry. It was adding an extra thing for no reason. Good, we don't have to do that. Okay, so let's lower all the hands just to start, because
yes, so all the hands are lowered, Marin. Yeah.
Okay, all the hands are lowered. I see still 3 raised.
I
sure all the
don't.
hands are lowered from commenting.
They're all lowered now.
They're all lowered.
Okay. Okay. So all of those in favor, raise your hand.
Yeah, and just use the raised hand. Don't use the green yes, or don't use the thumbs up.
Oh.
If you can, just use the raised hand, which is either in the participants tab, or if you can't find it there, it's in the reactions tab.
Catherine is raising her hand.
Okay.
But not the
Yeah,
right-
that's actual hand. And so is Kay. So Kay has like this, and so does Catherine.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, just to check, yeah, in the reactions, yeah, there should be a raised hand button. Yeah, that's great. That's good.
And also, we dad put in the chat that she is a paid member, but she says MDM.
So Dad, you did not actually renew for 2020, and you haven't renewed for 2021. You were a member in 2019.
Who?
We dad.
Yeah, just to check, we have one person who's got a thumbs up, but do you want to change that to a raised hand?
Yeah. Perhaps
Okay.
I'm confusing the women's club with the Point Loma. So I stand corrected.
Thank you. Sorry.
Maren or John, could you confirm the number of people who voted on screen, either with a hand or physically raising their thumb?
I would
Yeah,
say.
well, in just a second, Kip, yeah, but just to check, one person has a button pressed. There you go. So now we have everybody with a raised hand. And then on the screen, are there any people who cannot raise their hand that are waving at us?
So plus
Like,
2. So
yeah, I see Catherine. And just to check, yeah, and Catherine and Ulrich.
What about
are
Dottie?
Well, let's do them one at a time, please. Sorry.
Yeah.
Catherine and Ulrich
yeah,
are both.
Ulrich is,
Sorry, Maren, go ahead.
no, it's okay. So it's plus, so we have the 13 plus Kay, Catherine, and Ulrich. Is that
Well,
correct?
I don't know whether Catherine and Ulrich are both voting the same way, so I need to.
Okay.
There you go. Hey,
Well, I just saw some hands on that part of the screen.
Hey, Catherine. Yeah. So
I'm voting for it.
Yes. Okay.
yeah, and is Ulrich voting for it? Is that 2 votes or 1 vote? I see Ulrich as well. Ulrich is voting as well.
And I keep seeing Dottie trying to clap hands. We should find out what she wants.
Dottie, are you
Yes.
trying to vote in favor?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so that's so Maren then and Kip. I see 13 hands raised on the participants tab.
And then 4.
I'd like to point out, that
Scott, hang on, Scott, just 1 second, Gary. Sorry, I'm just doing my math. Yeah, plus Catherine and Ulrich, right? Plus Dottie.
and
Plus
Barbara.
K.
Barbara
K.
forgot to raise her hand because I think she didn't know how.
Oh, Barbara, do you raise your hand if you meant to? So we had those 13 plus 4, Catherine.
Plus 4, yeah. correct.
Ulrich, Kay, and Dottie,
Okay.
and Barbara. So that's plus
Yeah.
5. So that's
So
18.
Yeah, is that what you see, Kip, as well?
Yeah, including myself using the green check, I'm having 18.
Okay, and then if you add me, because I can't vote because I'm the host, that makes 19.
I counted you.
You did? Okay, so that's 18 then. Okay, great. So what I'll do now is go ahead and lower all the hands.
Take all your wraps off.
Okay, the hands are all lowered. And so now if everybody who wants to vote against the motion wants to raise their hands.
I'm going through.
Good. And then again, everybody who wants to vote, please vote.
I'm seeing 5. I don't see any other hands in the.
Yeah, just to check, there's 1 hand. Yeah, there you go. That's 5. That's good. So everyone wants to vote? Okay, yeah. So I see the same, Maren.
Okay,
So I see
5.
5 against.
Okay, so 5 against.
Yeah.
Okay, so motion carries. All right, there it is. Everybody can lower their hands. Wow, this went really somewhere tonight. Also, okay. So just kind of because we had a really long meeting, let's move on to our next item with reports. I'll let Kip, you can go ahead and first with Secretary report. Angela, who is ready right now.
All right. On screen, you're seeing the minutes from our November meeting where we had a really great discussion about Measure B, and we moved to support Monica Montgomery Stepp for San Diego City Council President. I'm wondering if I could get a motion to approve these minutes.
This is Angela, and I move to approve the minutes for the November 22nd, 2020 Point Loma Ocean Beach Democratic Club General Meeting.
Okay, thank you, Angela. Anybody second?
Yeah, I second. This is John.
Okay. Is there any discussion? I would probably assume no. Okay. If anybody is opposed to the approval of these minutes, please raise your hand now. Go ahead, Louise. Louise, did you have something?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. Okay. I assume unanimous consent for the minutes. Okay. Kip, did you have anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Angela?
Yes, so the balance in our checking account as of December 31st was $7,729. Since we were unable to do an in-person holiday party, we ended up making donations to the Western Service Workers Association for their holiday toy and food drive. We've also made a donation to the Ocean Beach holiday food and toy drive, and we made a donation to the San Diego Democrats Interclub holiday toy drive. So we did what we could, and for all of you who also separately donated to the Western Service Workers Association, I know they greatly appreciated that. Regarding membership for 2021, for any of you who have not renewed at this point, please do so. We did get renewals instantaneously today during the meeting. But if you have not remembered, please go onto our website. You can pay online. You can also, if you prefer to send a check, there's instructions on making your check payable to the Point Loma Democratic Club, filling out the membership application, and then putting it in the mail to our PO box. So it's all on the website. We will continue to do meetings via Zoom for the foreseeable future. And we hope that you will be able to participate in our Zoom meetings. We are meeting on the fourth Sunday of the month at 4 o'clock. So our next meeting is not until February 28th. And I hope that all of you who are eligible are making your efforts to get vaccinated. That's my report.
Thank you, Angela. All right, do we have any new business?
Yeah, just one thing to add, Maren. Yeah, just following on from what Angela said about vaccinations, as of Saturday, the county will now accept anybody over the age of 65. So it was 75 last week, 65 it changed. If you go, we'll put the link in the chat. You can sign up and grab a spot. And if you don't see a spot there on the day that you want, keep checking because spots do open up. So check each day or whatever if you don't get the spot when you want it. But a lot of friends I know over the age of 65 were able to jump on this weekend and get vaccination appointments for this week.
I did forget to mention one thing, which is the Western Service Workers Association is actually making tamales. And if you call them, we had a link or actually a phone number in the email that went out regarding this meeting. So if you'd like to support the Western Service Workers Association and you would like some wonderful tamales, please give them a call to arrange to get some.
Okay. All right. Thank you all so much. Any old business? I'm assuming no. All right. We are adjourned at 6:07. That was a long one and it went in kind of a wild direction. Thank you all so much for coming. I have to go make some dinner for my kiddos, so I'm going to jump off. I'm going to, for any of you guys that would like to stay and discuss, please do so. We'll put all the information out about Lucero's presentation, about vaccinations, and anything else that's relevant in our outgoing email. It was really nice to see all of your faces. Thank you all so much for coming. Be well, everybody. Wear your masks. Go get your vaccines if you can, please. I miss you all. Bye. Love you all.
Right. Thanks, Maren.
On the tamales,
Yes.
I got a telephone call and they're $10 for a half dozen, pork, veggie, or chicken. And they will be delivering them on the 4th, 5th, and 6th of February. So if you order them, you don't have to go pick them up this time.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Oh, and instead of their volunteers making them this year, they're having a professional chef making them.
Yeah, I understand somebody volunteered to do that, right?
I don't know. I know that there were some complaints about last year's tamales.
That's good. And just to remind everybody, if you want to download the chat from today's meeting to save any of the links that were posted in there, if you're on a laptop, down the bottom of the chat, there are 3 little dots or an ellipsis. If you click on that, there should be an option to save the chat, and then it will save a file to your local computer with all the links in there. But we will put several of them in the notes from this meeting as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, peeps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. Everybody
Thanks.
stay
Bye.
well.
Bye.
Stay well.
Bye-bye.
Stay home. Stay well.
Nice to see you, Ruth. Bye.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye,
Ciao.
Dad.
Bye.
Bye.
Ruth.
Bye.
Daddy,
Everyone.
thank you for your
Happy
vote.
birthday, John.
John, happy
Yes,
birthday.
thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, happy birthday.
We're gonna sing to him. Come on.
No, it's not till
Happy
Tuesday. You can't
birthday
sing.
Birthday to you.
Happy birthday
birthday
to
to
you.
you.
Happy
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 birthday
birthday,
to
dear
you.
John.
Happy
Happy
Birthday
birthday
to
to you.
and many
you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
For he's
Thank
a
you.
jolly good fellow, for he's
Jolly good fellow.
good night.
And don't forget
which
to fill
nobody
out
can
your
deny.
ballot. Don't forget to fill out your ballot.
Yes.
Yes.
Vote for
As long
us.
as you vote, as long as you're voting for Wadad, exactly. That's one of my top recommendations. My top
Dad from
recommendation.
Baghdad.
Vote for Wadad.
We Dad, Oren, I can give anybody, just email me. I'll give you recommendations.
I'm sure you
I
will.
won't make them in public. I won't make them in public though.
Thank
Good.
you, Susan.
Okay. Stay well.